My name is Juan Francisco, and I'm a psychic medium and tarot card reader. I've always been curious about the supernatural, the paranormal, and psychic abilities, and I'm here to share my stories and interview folks who want to share their own stories with us. Let's get to it. Today's episode of Third Eyesight, I actually wanted to record this as a video as well. So if you prefer to listen to this audio only, then you are on Spotify, on Apple, or Google listening to this podcast. If you want to listen to it or watch me talk while you listen to me, you can head to my YouTube channel for Third Eyesight and watch the video recording of this. It's literally just me. I'm saying this for those who are just listening in audio. But it's literally just me with my microphone, with a divider behind me, covering up the rest of my room behind me, with some decent, nice sunlight in my room, natural sunlight. So those who are watching me on video right now can enjoy me, a picture of me, moving picture of me. So I want to talk about what goes into a mediumship reading today. Let's talk first about what mediumship is. So as I've learned it, the definition of mediumship, I'm going to paraphrase. No, this is not an official definition you can find anywhere. But the way I understand mediumship is the ability to connect with those who have passed on or those in the spirit world. A psychic reading may focus purely on reading the energy of the person you're talking to, the living person or the living being, or reading an object and the information that is tied to an object, who the owner was, where the object was made, how, whatever it might be, different characteristics of an object, a person, a place, or an animal. Whereas a mediumship reading, it's connecting with those who are in soul form, spirit guides, loved ones that have passed who have departed. And that includes animals as well, or pets, or just animals in general. Anything that has a soul, and most things have a soul in the universe we live in, but we're talking about intelligent souls, like spirit guides, human loved ones, and animal loved ones. Specifically, if a plant dies, it's not necessarily the same type of soul to communicate with as a loved one, like our mother or a sibling or a child. So in a mediumship reading, the way I conduct a mediumship reading, and each medium can be very different. So just know this is my style. There's no right or wrong way, but this is how I prefer to conduct my mediumship readings. And I have learned from some of the best out there, indirectly and directly. I've had a mentor. I've been in a spirit mediumship circle. So I have learned from other people how to conduct readings, and I've also found my own groove, my own preferences as to how I want to conduct a mediumship reading. So in my mediumship readings, I always tell folks that I prefer to have the soul either give me images, symbols of things that mattered to them or would matter to the person I'm talking to in the reading, the sitter. I also want souls to come through with their personalities. I want them to use humor. I want them to tell me about their mannerisms, the way they use their body language, the way they cracked a joke or a joke that they like to say, or a song they used to like. Sometimes they'll give me a song, sometimes they'll give me a melody. The weird thing about mediumship for me is, because each medium can interpret, or let's say first, because interpreting is another step. Let's talk about the receiving of this information first. A medium can receive information in many different ways. It depends on the ability, the mediumistic ability of the medium. Depends on what they've practiced as well. A lot of this is practiced, and we can go into what I always like to go into, that we're all mediums. It's just about practice and development. But that is a conversation for a past podcast and a future podcast. Maybe not this one. So some mediums can see spirit. Like some mediums can actually see a full body spirit. Some can only see shadows. Some don't see any at all. They just feel things. That's me. I mostly, 99.5% of the time, I do not see spirit. I feel their personalities and I feel the emotions. And I see instances from their life, or instances from the life of the person I'm speaking to who is living. And so in terms of receiving, that can happen in many different ways. Different mediums have different ways of receiving information from spirit. And that really depends on, number one, their practice and their development of this ability, but also number two, what they're meant to receive, how they're meant to receive, because not all of us are meant, the universe doesn't mean for all of us to receive spirit the same way. So it is half development and practice, and the other half is out of our control. It's really up to spirit to choose how they want to come through for the medium that they're speaking through. Because some mediums are better able to receive through sight and actually seeing things in front of them in the room. Well, maybe someone like me, maybe they know that I would freak out if I saw people in my room talking to me or appearing to me out of nowhere. So they decide, maybe Juan is not the best medium or the best person to see us, because he would just freak out and it would distract him from the work. Maybe that's why, I don't know. But I'll accept that. In terms of interpreting, so first you have the receiving in a mediumship reading, receiving the information. Then the next step for a medium to do is to interpret what's coming through and relay it to you if you are the one who booked a reading. Relay it to the sitter, the person in the room or in the Zoom room or the virtual room. And that's where the hard part comes in, because here we are taking feelings, visuals, sensations, thoughts that we feel like are not our own, and we can't quite put into words very easily other than just describing what we're feeling, what we're seeing. But we have to be very careful, because some things can be symbolic and some things can be literal. A lot of the times they're very symbolic. For me, what ends up happening is I tend to get a lot of literal information from spirit. I don't know why or how, but it just happens to be that way. But sometimes a symbol will come in and I take it way too literally. So if a medium tells you something, like if I were to tell you, they're showing me a blue blanket. Now that can mean a blanket that belonged to a little boy. There is a little baby boy in the family who's on his way out, on his way into the world, or on his way, or it was just born, or it's a hospital blanket, because for me, hospital blankets are either white or blue. So I give all these options, and that can sound very generic, like I'm trying to fish for something. But what I then do is, if someone says, well, my grandma's hospital blanket was blue, well, did you keep the hospital blanket? Maybe they'll say yes, maybe they'll say no. But then what I'll do, because I don't like to make it too easy for myself, I have to admit, I will ask, let's say grandma, I will ask grandma, okay, we talked about the blue blanket, give me something else. And then grandma will tell me something about her going to church, or her cooking a certain type of meal that smelled really good, or every Sunday that there was a weekly family dinner. And then the person says, yes, she would always host a weekly family dinner at her house. Then, okay, that's a second validation. So we have grandma. Let's keep going and see what else comes through. So there are many different ways to sometimes interpret what comes through from spirit. It's about trusting that what you're receiving from spirit, that it is in fact correct, and just trying to decipher or decode what it is with the person who is in front of you. So as a medium, I cannot do this work alone. I need the sitter to help me decode, because they are the ones that knew this person best in the physical world. And it's kind of like having a translator. Like I'm working as a translator for you and spirit. Now, the thing is, we can all do this work, because spirit really does not, I don't even like the word translator. It really is interpreter, because spirit is not bound to human languages and cultures and limitations. They are way beyond that. They are everything. And we are everything too. We just don't realize it because we're in these physical bodies. And so when it comes to receiving information, then interpreting it, it's really my job as a medium to sort of translate what's coming through in the best way possible based on my human language, what I know of human language and the English language. And my experience with my own feelings and emotions to help put into words what they're giving me. That's why when it comes to being a medium or practicing psychic abilities or mediumistic abilities, it's really important that we participate in the world that we live in, because the more that we experience the world, the more tidbits we get, the more information spirit can use in a reading. So maybe last week I went to go see a singer at a bar, and they sang a song by Adele that I haven't heard in a long time. And then spirit this week in a reading reminds me of that, brings me back to that moment I was in that bar a week ago. And that ends up being a very validating message for the sitter, for the person who booked the reading. Maybe the song is their favorite song. Maybe the song's title is a message that the sitter really needs to hear. Spirit knows what they're doing. So it's important that we are experiencing the world so that Spirit has ways, it builds up our library of things that Spirit can use. So when we receive the information that Spirit gives to us, then we can interpret it, because we can interpret what comes through based on our own life experiences and what we know of these symbols. For example, here's one example of something that could be a little bit tricky. If I'm speaking, from what I know of Japanese culture, if I'm speaking with a Japanese client, a white rose can mean something very different to me than it could to a Japanese client. I believe in Japan, white roses are used at funerals, but we associate funerals in Anglo-Saxon culture, I guess I'll call it, with darker colored flowers or the color black, right? Or maybe red roses. So if I tell the sitter who is of Japanese culture, if I tell them they're showing me red roses, and for me red roses symbolize, and then I say whatever I say, but then the sitter says, well, white roses are used for funerals, and we just had a funeral last week, then that must be what it is. So this is a good instance in which the sitter, this work cannot be done without the help of the sitter who wants to connect to their loved one. So if grandma comes through and tells me that, white roses, white roses, white roses, I may be saying, I'm seeing white roses. So have you recently planted a new garden? Do white roses mean something to you, or are those your favorite colored flowers, white flowers, or do you love roses? And they may say, well, white roses are symbolic of death for us, and we just had a funeral last week, and we had white roses at the funeral. Then that's the reason Spirit brought up white roses. My own experience, it's hard to kind of pinpoint exactly where my experience matters in a reading, because Spirit uses my life experience to bring up the symbols and the images and the feelings. But what matters more than my association with those images, feelings, sensations is the sitter's association with those things. So Spirit is using my life experience and things from my life to help bring something out of the sitter. What matters is how the sitter feels and how they feel about the things coming up. Less than how I feel, way less. So the white rose is a very good example. I may bring up a white rose because Spirit brings it up, and I'm trying to decode it and decipher it. But what matters is they show me a white rose. I'm going to tell the sitter I see a white rose. Everything else I say after that, it's me trying to decode or interpret what a white rose means to me and to see if it means the same for the sitter. But if the sitter corrects me and it makes sense for them and it means something important to them, Spirit did its job, and Spirit used me as they needed to. I wonder if that makes sense to you. It can feel a little bit or seem a little bit counterintuitive or convoluted or really confusing, but it really is quite simple. It really is it's like playing a mystery game, and I don't mean to make light of psychic or mediumship readings, but it really is like a mystery game. It's like a scavenger hunt. You have your clues, and it's about wondering what these clues lead to or what they mean. And at the end of the day, my goal is just for someone to feel that, or someone to know, to learn and understand that their loved ones are around them. And if that means that a symbol comes through that I don't know where it comes from and it feels really random, but it means something to the sitter, my job is done. And Spirit has done an amazing job. Spirit always does an amazing job. And that's the other thing I want to bring up. So I'm going to put a little bit of an end to this part of the podcast, where that is how mediumship reading for me works. So what I want to delve into now is when things come up in a reading and they don't make sense for the sitter. And this happened. I had 2 readings yesterday, and there were things that didn't make sense. And then for one reading, most of what I said made complete sense to them, and they left feeling very empowered. But the other reading I had, there was one soul that came through that really was strong, and things were landing for the sitter and made sense. And there were other things I said about other souls that were like, I don't know. And when that happens, of course, I feel discouraged. I feel a little bit down about that because I want things to land for the sitter. But I've taken on this attitude now, and I have to work hard to take up this attitude and approach of, if something doesn't resonate with the sitter, either it will make sense to them later, or it's just I've interpreted something incorrectly. And I told both sitters yesterday in my readings I had yesterday that I'm willing to be wrong. I'm okay being wrong. I'm okay with if something does not ever make sense. This is why I record my readings, because maybe it will come up later. It will make sense later. But if it doesn't ever make sense, I'm okay with that. Just so they know that I come with integrity, and I come with a lot of groundedness and humility, because it's not about me being right. As much as my ego is really loud and I want to be right so badly, but it really is not about me being right. So when things come up in a reading and it doesn't make sense to you, when a medium says things to you and they don't make sense or they don't resonate, just hold on to them. Maybe make a note of them, because they may make sense later to you. And when you talk to your mother, your father, or a friend, and they say, hello, yeah, Ted used to keep like a collection of walking canes. I don't know, antique walking canes. That's a really example. Some things that will happen sometimes. It's happened to me in a reading when I've gotten a reading from somebody and things make sense later. And it happens way more often than not. Honestly, it happens really often that things don't make sense and then they make sense afterwards. The amount of times I have received DMs on Instagram after doing a live reading, or even doing a personal reading one-on-one with somebody, I'll get an email or a DM saying, hey, these are some things you said that didn't make sense, but now they make sense, and this is how they make sense now. And Spirit knows what they're doing. They know what they're doing. And even me with my human brain conducting the reading, sometimes I can't fully grasp or understand how Spirit is working, because its Spirit is so boundless and so limitless. So I have to trust that what's coming through is meant to come through, even if it doesn't land at the moment. And the other thing is expectation. So all that I ask from my sitters and people who book readings with me is just to be open. And first and foremost, people need to know what they're purchasing when it comes to a reading. So I highly recommend that if you're going to book a reading with a psychic or medium, that you really know what it is they're offering. I've had people book a mediumship reading with me, and they expected like a life coaching session, or a session in which they get direction from me as to what next steps to take in their life. And I'd tell them, this is a mediumship reading where we connect with departed loved ones. And if you want that kind of session, then maybe it's a card reading. If you're asking me to talk about or to diagnose something medical in the family, and I just touched my mic, sorry, unedited podcast. But if you heard a bump, sorry. If you're asking me to diagnose something medical, I'm going to tell you, I can't do that. I can tell you how I feel, or what I feel the outcome is, or the journey of that medical, how that medical journey might feel, but I can't tell you whether someone's going to live or die or stay sick or get better, because I'm not a medical professional. There are medical mediums out there, and I'll refer medical mediums to you, or I will mention names of people whom I know have a really wonderful ability when it comes to reading somebody's health. And I just did that yesterday, actually, because that's the important thing too, is I don't want to pretend to be an expert at something and then I'm just cheating someone out of their money. And I said that to someone yesterday, and I think I could have been a little bit more gentle, honestly, because I said, listen, when it comes to medical stuff, because they'd asked me a question twice, and I said, this is how I feel, that there's no need to worry. You're doing the very best that you can with this family member and their condition, but I would be BSing you. This is how I said it. I would be BSing you if I told you that I can tell you if they're going to get better or if they're going to be healed, because I don't want to lie to you. Like, I don't want to mislead you. I don't want to cheat you. That wouldn't be fair. And I just want to be honest. And I hope that people understand that when I say things like that they know that I respect them. I respect their time. I respect their intelligence, because who am I to tell somebody like, oh, I feel like your mother's going to be healed of her cancer, and then a month later the cancer is in remission and it comes back. Like, that, how horrible, first of all, would I feel, second of all, and number two, I don't have the expertise and the life experience to share something like that. It's just not right. So know what you're buying when you're purchasing a reading, know what you're getting, and make sure that you chat with the medium or psychic, like, hey, do you answer health questions? Do you answer questions about the lottery? Because like I refuse to answer questions about what lottery numbers should I, you know, should I, was it buy, or I've never played the lottery. So what lottery numbers should I play? Or what day should I go to the casino? Like, these are things that I just don't want to read about. Maybe there are other psychics who do, but not for me, because it's just not what I prefer to focus on. So know what you're purchasing when you're buying a reading. Know what kind of medium or psychic you're talking to, what is covered in their readings. It's really helpful when mediums outline what is a mediumship reading for them, what is a psychic reading, what does a card reading entail, what does a Reiki healing session entail for them. Because I think nowadays with the internet, there's so much out there. There's so many of us doing this work out there that we expect all of them to be doing the same thing, and it's just not true. What's interesting about mediumship is, the last thing I'll say, is that I am one medium out of hundreds of thousands, maybe millions of people out there who are practicing mediums. Like I said, we're all mediums, but when it comes to practicing professional mediums, I'm one of so many thousands, hundreds of thousands out there in the world. And I believe we all work with the same spirit world. It's not a different spirit world, person to person. So then what makes me compelling enough to want to buy a reading from me or the next person? It's the way we show up at readings. It's our personalities. It's how we prefer to communicate. That is what you're purchasing. You can get a reading with anybody in the world, psychic, mediumship, whatever. But what you're really purchasing when you're purchasing a reading or going to a reading, what you're really opting in for is an interaction with the reader, the communication style of the reader. At the core of it, you are there to talk with your loved ones. Absolutely. But you can do that with any medium. So why specific medium? Because they bring their personality into it and their communication style. And that has to click for you. You have to make sure that you click with them so that you feel comfortable. You feel like you're in a safe space talking to this medium or psychic. And I will always say, any medium or psychic who says they are the best, they are the one, they are the smartest, they are the most experienced, I say walk the other direction very kindly. Because there has to be humility in this work. And it's one thing for me to say I'm proud of the work that I do. I'm so happy that the work that I do can bring healing to people that I talk to. I feel comfortable saying that I'm proud of that. And that a lot of that work is spirit. I am just the co-pilot with spirit. And spirit is the bigger pilot, the way bigger co-pilot. It's another thing for me to say, I will heal all your troubles. I am the one that you need. I am the person I am the one that you can use to talk to your loved ones. I am the only way, I am the best way you can talk to your loved ones. First of all, the best way you can talk to your loved ones is in your head with your prayers. And this is the last thing I'll say. We can all do this. We can all practice psychic abilities. We can all practice mediumship. We can all practice reading each other's energies and being intuitive. We can all practice talking with other people's loved ones and our own loved ones, especially our own loved ones. When someone makes you a sandwich, it sometimes tastes better than when you make the same sandwich for yourself, because there's a lot of love in that sandwich. Someone took the time to make that sandwich for you. Like, you could probably easily make a sandwich that you buy at a deli or the grocery store, or like a wrap, yourself. But you go to the deli or grocery store because you don't want to maybe go through the time of making it, purchase all the ingredients, and there's just something nice about being served by somebody else. It's a lovely feeling, right? This is the same thing with mediumship. That's the way I see mediumship readings. You can talk to your own loved ones. You can connect with them, maybe even more seamlessly than I can. But sometimes we need that reminder from somebody else that they are there. Sometimes we need to hear from somebody else that our loved ones are there, because we are so in our heads and we are so biased that we tend to downplay our own connection with our loved ones. So we need a professional. Like I said, we can all do this, but professional it's a consultation. We need to consult with a professional to remind us that our loved ones are there, that they hear us, that they love us, that they are watching the things that our families are going through and that we are going through. It doesn't mean that you need a medium And I always tell people, if you're going to book me once or twice a year max, because I am not your telephone line to your loved ones. You are. I am just here to be the call service that you once in a while tap into. It's not something that you need all the time. And I really want to stress that going to see a medium over and over again, even if they can connect with your loved ones every single time, it takes away from the power, it takes away from you recognizing the power you have at connecting with your loved ones. Yes, maybe when you connect with your loved ones, you don't hear an answer back all the time. But it takes practice. It takes practice and patience. And also, the more you see a medium, in my personal belief, if someone tells me they want to talk to me every week to talk to their mother, I'm going to start getting very accustomed to seeing this person, getting to know them, their ins and outs in terms of emotions and their life struggles probably. And then it's going to become too close of a client-medium relationship. And I'm going to start feeling biased because I'm going to start developing my own opinions about this person's life, their struggles, their mother who's passed. And when it's like going to a third party to mediate an argument or to mediate a conversation. Sometimes you need that objective, third party, non-involved input to help set the record straight or to help clarify things. And if I'm too involved in someone's life that way as a medium, my opinions start to get in the way of the reading. And the best thing to do is to set aside my biases and opinions. Even like with friends, I tell friends, reading for a friend is very different from reading a stranger, because with a friend, I care a lot about them. I know a lot about their life. There's less room for me to validate things that I wouldn't know about because I know so much about them. And that's the same thing with the client. The more I see a client, the more I'm going to learn about them. And with mediumship, what's important is that you feel validated knowing that your loved ones are around you. But if I tell you things that I could easily deduce or guess based on our past interactions we've had so many times, it's not going to be as validating of a message for you when something does come through from a loved one. And so there's that piece. And then there's the other piece of, we need to really stand in our power when it comes to communicating with our own loved ones. A mediumship reading is there to remind you that they are there and you can talk to them and they're hearing you. It's not there to be a call service, or an ongoing call service. So that's how mediumship reading works, in my opinion, and the way I conduct a mediumship reading. And if you have any questions, you can DM me on Instagram or send me an email. And I just appreciate you listening. And I think this is something that is very important to talk about, because of TV and pop culture, people have so many expectations as to how mediumship reading should work and what a medium is. So hopefully this clarifies things a little bit. I leave you to a wonderful rest of your day, and thank you so much for joining this audio/video podcast today. Have a good one. If you have a question or topic you want me to cover on Third Eyesight, head to my website, juanfranciscospirit.com/contact, and send a message my way. If you really enjoyed this episode, leave a review wherever you listen. I'd really appreciate it.